Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock. Welcome to the October meeting of the Louisville Town Council. Those of you who are watching on TV6, good to have you with us. Those of you who are watching on Facebook, we're glad you're with us tonight as well. We'll begin our meeting this evening with an invocation by Bo Houff. Bo? Bo, I've heard a silent prayer before, but I think you got to unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, and it was so good. I'll start over. Let's pray. God our Father, we give you thanks for another beautiful day in Louisville, North Carolina. You are so good to us. Help and keep us mindful of those who are not as blessed as we are. We ask for your healing hand over those who are in need of healing, your comforting hand over those who are in need of comforting. We give you thanks tonight for all of those who make the town run. It's a wonderful staff and the elected body and the appointed bodies and boards that work with Louisville. We ask you to be with us during the course of this meeting, to give the council wisdom and courage to do the things that need to be done for the town. And we ask all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin our meetings as always with a roll call of council members. Mr. Smitherman.
Present.
Ms. Hunt.
Happy Thursday.
Ms. Foster.
Evening, present.
Ms. Welch.
Here.
Ms. Franklin.
I'm here.
Dr. Sadler.
Present.
Very good. Also with us this evening is our town attorney, Bo Houff, our town finance officer, Pam Worrell, our town manager, Hank Perkins, our community policing sergeant, PJ Stringer, and also our town clerk, Mrs. Joyce Walker. Ryan, did I get you in that group too? Okay, we'll get you in this time. I think I missed you last time. And our public works director, Ryan Moser. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering about the abundance of pink on your screen tonight, we are recognizing those survivors of breast cancer and doing our part to create an awareness for the importance of mammograms and early detection. So October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We hope that you'll do the appropriate things to keep yourself and your family safe. Council members, we have an agenda. We do have one addition, I believe, and that will be under unfinished business. And this will be an update on our board and committee project that Ms. Foster was working on. Do we have any other additions to or revisions to our agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Ms. Hunt makes the motion. Dr. Sadler makes the second. Mr. Smitherman.
Approve.
Ms. Hunt.
Aye.
Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Welch.
Aye.
Mr. Franklin.
Aye.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor's aye, and that is unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, our next item of business is our consent agenda. These are matters that traditionally or typically come before the town council. They're routine in nature. There are financials, there are minutes. We take them as a group unless anybody wishes to have any item pulled off for separate consideration or held over for the next meeting. Ms. Walker, I believe you have one change.
Okay, yes, I would like to ask council's approval to pull the minutes from the September 10th meeting. I'm still working on those. You asked that Ms. Talbert's information be added in, and I am trying to do that. I'm still working on it.
Very good. Council members, are there any other changes, additions? Mr. Franklin.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have in my notes here beside of me, but I believe it was the September 3rd briefing meeting under 2G when we had a discussion about the previously passed resolution to establish a public hearing for the Solomon project. And there was discussion about to pull that or rescind that motion. And it indicated in the minutes that I was the one that suggested that we pull it. And then I, in turn, voted with a 4-3 vote, it actually was pulled, but I'm not sure that's correct there. So, and I may be wrong on which meeting. I don't have it here right in front of me. But again, I'm not, if I would have made that suggestion that we pull what we did back in July and then voted against it, I'm not sure I'm the one that made that motion. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Very good. With that change, Ms. Walker, you'll make a correction on the minutes?
I'll make a notation, but I remember listening to the minutes and I will double check that for Mr. Franklin and make that change.
Very good. Thank you. Any other changes or additions?
Yeah, again, I think Dr. Sadler made the actual, when we got the motion, and I forget who seconded it, but I know that Jean Marie, Jane, and myself voted against that particular item. And I think it was in 2G. I'm not sure whether it was which exact set of minutes. I apologize for that.
Okay, and this is a different vote that you're talking about, Mr. Franklin?
Well, ultimately, we had a lot of discussion about the public hearing for the Solomon project, that we never had a public hearing as a council because of some misinformation. I see Bo digging right now. Maybe he can help us out.
I'm not going to guarantee I'll find it. I'm taking a look here to see. Keep hitting the wrong minutes. Let me just go through this.
Mr. Franklin, this all pertains to the September 3rd minutes?
I think it was at a briefing, which would be September 3rd versus.
Okay, very good. Well, to expedite this, Mr. Franklin, why don't we pull September 3rd and approve those at our next meeting?
It actually may, we were talking about the meeting that was going to follow on a Monday night. And that's when we decided not to have the, as I recall, public hearing, but there was the discussion was around whether it should be a public hearing, which would have been contrary to what I believe the attorney said we should be doing, but to have public comment in its place, which is what did happen.
I guess my only point here at this point in time is, if I suggested we should rescind what we had previously approved for a public hearing, why would I vote against it?
No, I'm not in disagreement with that. I just wanted it to be clear to the public that there was no conflict over whether or not the public ought to have an opportunity to make comment. It was just the form in which they would do it.
Right.
Mayor?
Yes, Bo.
It looks, looking at that section 2G, it reads, Councilmember Franklin suggested that the resolution passed at the July 9th meeting setting a public hearing for this project be rescinded, since discovering that this was an error noted by Attorney House and this is instead a hearing for compliance only. And then in subsection 5 of that, it says, after discussing the public hearing matter, Councilmember Sadler moved to rescind resolution 2020-048, and it was passed, seconded by Councilmember Smitherman, and passed with a 4-3 roll call. So that may not be inaccurate, Mr. Franklin, I'm not sure, but that's how I'm reading that from those minutes right now.
And that is the which minutes?
September 3.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what you were referring to, Fred?
And it is 2G. So I think they're if that's correct, if Mr. Franklin agrees with that, then those minutes are correct unless there are other suggested changes.
I will agree with that with Joyce and Bo checking behind me. So we can go ahead and approve those.
Very good. Any other revisions or changes? Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Ms. Welch makes the motion. Dr. Sadler makes the second. Any further discussion? Mr. Smitherman?
I approve.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin? Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Ms. Walker, our next item is a proclamation for the council to consider, and this is for National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Would you like to read us that proclamation, please?
I'll read it from my other computer. This is proclamation 2020-006. Whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month since the program began in 1985, mammography rates have then doubled, and for those over the age of 50, and breast cancer deaths have declined. As National Cancer Awareness Month remains dedicated to the increasing public knowledge about the importance of early dedication of breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. And whereas in the United States, more than 268,000 women and approximately 2,600 men are diagnosed with breast cancer annually. And whereas the awareness campaign sends several key messages, most notably the importance of early detection through annual mammography screening. And whereas early detection and regular mammogram screenings followed by timely treatment upon diagnosis can significantly improve patients' chance of survival. And whereas the American Cancer Society has searched endlessly for a cure through vital research and has the mammoth task of educating the community and all Americans of the risks of breast cancer. And whereas, and you have to excuse me because I have on a different pair of glasses, whereas research continues to better understand the safety and effectiveness of new approaches to treatment. And whereas taking advantage of early detection methods and clinical breast exams could help the breast cancer death rate drop by approximately 30%. And whereas the dedicated researchers are to be commended for providing quality treatment and care to women and men across the country. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Louisville Town Council does hereby recognize October 2020 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And be it further proclaimed that the Louisville Town Council urges all women, men, and their families to get the facts about breast cancer and join in celebrating all successes and to memorialize lost battles. This, the 8th day of October, 2020, for the Louisville Town Council by Mayor Mike Horn.
Very good. Council members, is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
Oh, may I speak first?
Yes,
Mayor?
ma'am. Absolutely.
Yes, I just wanted to say also that 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with breast cancer. So it can definitely be your wife, your sister, your daughter, your neighbor, one of your good friends. And as Joyce stated so thoroughly, early detection is really the answer. And we are so fortunate in our community to have 2 hospitals that are excellent with this diagnosis. And the reason I'm just passionate about it and reaching out to others to inform is this coming March, it'll be 12 years since my diagnosis. And after that, and after the care and the loving outreach, it gives you a passion to want to be there for others. So I'm asking if anybody would like to contact me for support, etc., please email or call me. I am here for you. And thank you for taking this information seriously. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Welch, I'll take that as a motion to approve.
Motion
I'll
to
second
approve.
that.
Mr. Franklin makes the second. Any additional discussion? Mr. Smitherman,
Gladly approve.
Ms. Hunt,
Aye.
Ms. Welch,
Aye.
Ms. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Franklin,
Aye.
Dr. Sadler,
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Sergeant Stringer, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Hope everybody's doing well. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I have our monthly.
I have a question for Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes, I saw the slide deck there, and to this point in time, I'm unclear as to whether your firm supplied us a up-to-date 2020 list of every road that we have in town and ranked them in priority by their street name.
That is included in the report.
Okay, well, I have not seen that part of the report yet. That's the reason I asked that question. Basically, all I've been provided at this point in time, due to our current meeting status, is that we had the slideshow that was included in this minutes. I went back and reviewed back into even August and July looking for that. So,
Yeah, it included appendices of the report. There is an alphabetical listing of all the streets by block with the score and the deficiencies that were identified. And then there's a separate ranking by score from worst to first.
thank you very much, and I would hope staff would provide that to us. I don't know if anybody else has seen that or not, but I currently have not. And we're going to be asked to spend $250,000 tonight on some streets is the reason I'm asking that question.
Ryan, I believe you did send that out by email, didn't you?
I believe I did. Maybe, I don't know how that didn't get to you, but I can send it to you again, Fred.
Well, I went back all the way to July looking for a message from you, Ryan, and I have not seen any email from you.
Okay, well,
I did do that today.
I'll forward that to everybody.
Ryan, those would be in Appendix B.
Okay.
I got a copy of it. Joyce, did you not send that?
Ryan sent it out.
Okay, well, I got a copy of it. It's been a few weeks ago.
I received a copy too. Somehow, Fred, it maybe got lost in your email pipe. Ryan will get you another copy.
I'll get it to you, Fred.
I have a question. Actually, I have a couple of questions. You mentioned that the cost to do the work that's needed is about $1.6 million, but you said that may not be all of the cost because there are other ancillary, I'll just call them ancillary services. You may call them something else that may be needed. Is there a typical percentage over the base cost that ancillary cost would represent?
Yes, sir. We would think it would typically run in the 25 to 40% range. It depends on how much extra things you do.
Okay.
A lot of communities will mill every street and resurface them. That adds some cost. And then there's just the cost of, the contractor would have mobilization, putting the contract together, inspection of the work, testing, things like that.
Okay, so about 25% would be, is that average or is that median? What is that?
I would say that's probably fairly typical. That would be additional cost. And the cost we identified, that total number, that is if you fixed everything we identified tomorrow.
Right, sure. Right, because the cost could go up if things are left unfixed. Is that what that means?
Yes, sir. The cost, asphalt is probably one of the more volatile products we use just because it's tied to the cost of petroleum. And contractor and the labor for contracts obviously is, contractors are very busy now. Despite COVID, contractors do this work are still very busy.
And you mentioned that we went from streets that were fair or poor to a number that were very good, and many that were very good, and the number that are very poor were decreasing as a percentage of all of the streets over time. Do you know how that changed?
I think overall the trend is up. The trend has gone up from, in this four we were involved in 2003, I think your overall PCR for the town was around 64. And 4 years later, it was around 68.
Okay.
2010, it was around 76. And 2017, you got up to 83, and now you're at 84. So I think you've made some really good progress. And I would encourage you to try and stay in that range.
So the alligator cracking that you mentioned, that is the worst distressor. If it already exists and it affects, I don't know if it affects ride quality or what, what's the risk of because you talked about a more balanced approach rather than addressing, say, many roads that would have alligator cracking, to addressing some roads that are in less significant condition or deteriorated to a lesser degree. But what's the risk of not doing the roads with the alligator cracking if there's a significant portion of the road that demonstrates that?
What can happen is it can spread and require more extensive repair. It also allows more water to get into the subgrade, to where the repair, instead of digging it out and putting in 4 or 6 inches to patch it, it may become a deeper patch. The cost to repair can go up over time. Right. And it's something that should not be ignored, but obviously you have to balance the needs of not just this, and y'all have other concerns you have to balance as well beyond just pavement.
Right. Okay. I just want to, for me, I just want to have a way of gauging what that balance sort of look like. I mean, the balance could be 50-50. The balance could be 60-40. I mean, I don't know if balance means 50-50 or if it means some other ratio. I don't know.
I think it can be a mix of those. It can be any number of those. I think 50-50 is probably a good place to start, and then kind of spread it out. What will happen, and I apologize for my dog, but what will happen is over time, and Ryan and I talked to this some, I think you should always focus on like crack sealing. It's a very cost-effective repair. I think Ryan has plans to do that. But then also, so let's identify that first. That's not a lot of money. So it may be that number is way under 50% allocated to the roads that are fair, because it doesn't cost a lot to fix them. So I don't know that I have the right answer on what the balance is. I mean, I've worked with some communities, and I know one town will do worse first. They go from the bottom of the list and work. That's how they do it. That is not what we recommend, because when you're ignoring the ones that are in fair condition, they progress to poor and eventually very poor. And so you're not getting the most value, I think, out of your maintenance dollar.
Okay, thank you.
I can show a picture. I'll share a picture of Peak Road. This is alligator cracking. It's also, well, I'll share a picture here. Hold on 1 second. Can you all see that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It was there and it disappeared.
Okay.
There we are.
There we go. So that's probably the worst spot in all of town. I don't even know what you would call that. What would you describe that as, Bob?
I would call that severe alligator cracking.
It also has you can't really tell it, but it almost looks like a large truck has driven through it and just pushed the asphalt off the side of the road. Not sure exactly how that happened, because there's not a lot of traffic on this road, but anyway, that's one of the areas that'll be addressed in the fall paving. But
I'd like to, with that picture being shown there, Ryan, do you have pictures of Tuscany Lane and Tuscany Court?
I don't.
You will show later?
I don't.
Well, I rode Peak Road yesterday, and
yes.
I rode Tuscany Lane and Tuscany Court yesterday. And so when we get down to the contract later on, I'll have some comments about that. But I'll agree with you on Peak Road as being one of the worst roads in town. But what I don't want people to forget is that was a dirt road that the town initially paved years ago when we did Dexter Drive, Grainland Drive, and Peak Road. For the ones of you that's been around long enough to remember that.
In fact, while we're talking about it, Peak Road, PAL bill money cannot be used for Peak Road if I'm not mistaken, because it's only at most 15 feet wide. And Joyce and Pam, it has to be 18 feet wide to use PAL bill money. Is that correct?
That's 16. It has to be at least 16 feet.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ms. Hunt, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Wilson, I was able to pull up Appendix B, and I'm looking at that chart, which is also phenomenal because I like to see numbers. But when I'm seeing where it says distress AN, that's the alligator cracking that you guys are referring to in your conversations, correct?
Yes, actually, you'll probably see a AN, AL, AM, and AS right beside it. All four of those describe alligator cracking. The AN is none, AL light, AM moderate, and AS severe.
Okay, thank you.
And the number you see is a base 10. Like if it says it's a 3, that's a 30% of whatever category is there. If that makes sense.
It does. So in that peak one that we were just referencing, that Ryan was referencing, I see a 5 underneath that AN distress category. So that would be 50%, correct?
Yeah. What are the other? Can you read the other numbers under the AN, AL, AM, AS?
It's 5 underneath the AN, 1 underneath AL, 0 underneath AM, and then 4 underneath AS if I didn't lose. And that's on the Peak Road, 7900 Dole Road.
Well, this is a good example. The 4 would be 40% of the road has severe alligator cracking. It sounded like there was no moderate. There was 10% that had light alligator cracking, and 50% of it did not have alligator cracking based on our assessment. If you look over, based on what Ryan was saying about the rutting, I don't know if there's an RT. Might be a category for that. Might be some letters under that.
Yes, there is. There's an RT, and it has N as in Nancy.
Okay. Yeah, the other categories would be BK, RT, RV. Those are some of the block cracking, rutting, raveling. They will have either an N, L, M, or S for none, light, moderate, or severe.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Bob, a quick question, and you've worked with a number of municipalities, and Peak Road is an interesting one, at least for us. Is there any correlation among municipalities that you work with in the allocation of dollars for maintenance with the population or number of homes that live on that street?
There's a lot of different ways of doing it. I mean, and that's kind of why we ask and study for each community to designate their high volume roads, because we would think a high volume road would have and we describe this in our report, a lesser trigger for when you would resurface versus a lower volume street. You know, you wouldn't have to have as extensive of distress on a higher volume road to want to resurface it and do other work. And that's why we try to break that down in the report. As far as what other communities do, it's all over the board. I mean, it really is. Some of the maintenance activities they do vary as well. Some resurface a lot more than others. I know some communities that don't like the look of crack sealing, so they just resurface the road, which I think is a huge waste of resources and money, in my opinion.
Anything else? Ms.
Quick
Foster?
question,
Yes, ma'am.
please.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
A couple of things. First of all, I echo what Councilwoman Hunt said. Excellent presentation. Thank you. Very, very helpful information. I recognize that, as you said, what, 56 miles of paved roads is what we have in the town, and it's an investment, and it's a long-term investment, but it's a large amount of money on an ongoing basis. While I have you here as an industry expert, is there anything else that you're seeing in the industry for us to consider long-term? Because, as you say, this is sort of a long-term process where asphalt is being substituted out, maybe for new roads, a different consideration. Anything at all that you could just give us a nibble on?
We're not seeing a whole lot of that. I know I will tell you this, that most of the asphalt you see go down in the roads includes usually at least 30% of it is recycled asphalt that's in it. Like if you ever see on the highways or the roads machines, the milling machines, where they're grinding it up, they don't throw that stuff away, they reuse it. So I think asphalt, and over time, different areas, even the North Carolina DOT, they've tried different mixes of asphalt, like putting old shingles in them, putting cut up tires. So it's not, I think it's, I got to ask the question in Carborough that, hey, what are you going to do when we stop pumping oil out of the ground? You know, so, well, even if we're not burning it, you know, we're probably still going to be making asphalt roads, because the alternatives are not much better as far as their cost and their disruption to the environment. I mean, concrete is great, but concrete has I'm not sure if this is where you were heading, but concrete is very expensive to produce and is very energy demanding to produce and to place. So I don't know if I went the wrong direction on your question or not.
A wide open question, just again, long-term, you're here and available. I thought I'd ask the question of your insight. Thank you.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes.
Ms. Welch, I'm sorry.
Oh, fine. Yes, Mr. Wilson, just a quick question. You had used the term milling before, and I think you just explained what that meant as far as grinding. Is that an extra expense when that has to be done?
Yes, it would be, and it varies. Now, sometimes if a road does not have curb on it, that's something we would call ribbon pavement, and a lot of times that can just be overlaid without milling. Many times a street that has curb, you can overlay it once, maybe even twice before you start milling. But at some point, the height of the asphalt gets higher than the curb, or you pave over the curb, and you can create, you know, either a trip hazard there or not effective for the drainage of the road. So you have to mill the street to try and bring that level back down. That's so it's not always done, but a lot of times it is included, particularly if a street has been resurfaced in the past.
Okay. One other quick question. This summer we had our driveway repaved, and the company that did it said that it was just the right time to do it because it had the cracking where mainly I had to watch for weeds coming through. But the gentleman said once it starts peeling up a little, then you have to do, I think, that milling.
Yeah.
So it was important to go ahead and put that top layer on when we did.
Yeah, I think
cracking.
Yeah, maybe start with the peeling. It might be something that I would normally call like raveling, where it starts to break down and starts to lose cohesion, and you're seeing some of the rocks that make up the asphalt. Over time, that'll just continue to break down. And if you catch that early, that is a good time to resurface.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Ryan, did you have something else?
I was just going to mention Tuscany Drive. Unfortunately, you know, it is curb and gutter, and some of the cost in that paving is from profile milling. You go in and you take 1.5 to 2 feet down at the gutter line, so you're not building up, as Bob said, onto the concrete.
Any other questions? Very good. Once again, thanks for excellent work. And we have pretty longevity with you guys. And so your familiarity with our roads probably is a great asset to us. And we appreciate your comments about the manner in which we're taking care of our roads. We'll go out and dig up $1.5 million and see if we can make it work.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Very good. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the point now with 2 opportunities for you to speak. Stacy, if you'll put up that slide real quick. This is our first public forum. If you would like to address the council, anything that's on your mind, it may be easiest just to call in on the telephone line. This is for you to share with us anything that you might be thinking. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. So if you don't get in right now, please jot down this information, this number, and have it ready. Hank, do we have, or Stace, do we have anybody waiting to speak?
The 2, Hank, Alex Carter and Bruce, they are the petitioners for the technical review, but I'm not sure about Mr. Rabin.
Yes, Mr. Rabin is the only one in attendance, and so far he has not indicated his desire to speak.
He did
Oh,
just
I do see a hand raised.
Very good. Mr. Rabin, welcome. Please give us your name and your address.
Presently muted.
Mr. Rabin, I think you're muted. There we go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Excellent. I'm at 212 Fernham Place, Louisville, North Carolina. Jeff Rabin. So a few things I just want to mention in general. One of them is that, I went to the park recently with my 5-year-old and saw other parents there with their kids and just got to talking. And it's like, yeah, it's interesting. All the playground just got, playground equipment got replaced. And we thought that was an interesting use of our tax dollars because we didn't think it was any better than the playground equipment that was there before. It just, new, and thought that was a strange use of our tax dollars. And that got us talking about the community center. I know we've broken ground on a new one, but I don't see evidence that we ever really put the old one to much use. It seems to get used for HOA meetings once a year. But, it's just kind of odd that we're spending money on these things. And I don't see where the community at large is asking for these things. I do see where we're asking for speed humps on a regular basis, but that doesn't seem to ever get the attention of the town council or its budget. But people keep asking for it every year. So I just thought I'd mention that. And then the main reason I wanted to call in and speak was that, as we went through this several week-long fiasco of deliberating on the new apartment complex, and I know nobody wants to rehash that again because we put it to bed, but it came out in those conversations that there seems to be a disconnect between the survey results of 2014 and 2019 and what we've got currently implemented as ordinance in the town. I'd really like to see a town council member make a motion tonight to clear up that disconnect, to make what the people have said in the surveys enforceable law via ordinance. Now, I don't know the mechanics of how that happens, whether that's a comprehensive plan that needs to be adopted versus accepted or what that is, but I'd still like to see it happen. And there are ways to convert the statistics that you have in those survey results into law. Like you can, just use a little bit of statistical modeling to figure out how many, units of apartment complex are allowed versus how many single family homes are allowed as you progress forward. And you don't need a PhD to do that, just a basic understanding of statistics to model that out. And I'd like to see that represented in ordinance that's enforceable so we don't have to go through those sorts of deliberations again. That's all I've got.
Very good, Mr. Raven. We appreciate your comments. Thank you for participating this evening. Anyone else, Hank?
No, there is no one else.
Okay, very good. If you are at home and would like to provide written comments, you can certainly send us an email. Send that to townclerk@louisvillenc.net. and we'll be glad to hear from you. Okay. Stacy, we have a technical review, please.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen for a presentation really quick. I don't know why it does this. Okay, is that better? Okay.
Yes, that looks.
So tonight before us is a technical review for compliance for a major subdivision. The name of that subdivision is Louisville Place. It is an extension of an existing subdivision. That's why it's called Section 5. This major subdivision is allowed by right. This is not a rezoning request. LPBR 2020-001. This is the first major subdivision that we have had a request for in the year 2020. The zoning district that it is in currently is RS9. That allows for 9,000 square foot minimum lots. The PIN number for the record is 5885-733093. So again, the request is a major subdivision. Even though it's only 7 lots, what throws it into this definition or this qualification for a major subdivision is because it is a extension of current or existing right-of-way of Kelwin Lane. The total property is approximately 3.31 acres. Again, it is 7 lots. 6 of those lots are to be accessed off of the extension of Kelwin Lane, and then 1 lot is a standalone lot that is to be accessed off of Louisville Clemens Road. Town staff is of the opinion that the request is in general conformance with the town's comprehensive plan and legacy for the area. You can see the map in front of you. The hashed yellow area is the property in question. And then the blue line is just to give you an idea of scale. That's about 500 feet around from every edge of the property, just to kind of give you an idea of the area in general. The developer is also requesting a waiver from curb and gutter and sidewalk requirements for high density or for small lot major subdivisions. Our ordinance does require curb and gutter and sidewalks. However, the existing development that is there contains ribbon pavement and there are no sidewalks. We have done this in the past. I believe it was in 2018 when a subdivision was approved in order to be extended with ribbon pavement and without sidewalks due to the UDO generally wanting conformance with what is already there, especially with something just, these few lots, to have curb and gutter just along this very small portion of right-of-way. It wouldn't be with what is already existing in that area. The UDO does allow exemptions such as these, but it does have to be granted by the elected body. And a letter I believe has been provided from the developer requesting that waiver. They have to submit that letter to the council in order for the council to approve that. I know this is kind of skewed. I can share a different screen in just a minute, but you can see the extension. This is the small portion of the extension of Kelwin Lane that will be extended with a T turnaround, 6 lots surrounding that, and then 1 lot to be accessed off of Louisville Clemens Road. These are all single-family residential homes. So the planning board voted to recommend approval of the subdivision at the September 9th planning board meeting. It was a unanimous approval. They voted to include the subdivision requirements of Chapter D, Section 4 of the UDO. That is the major subdivision section of the Unified Development Ordinance, which also include the requirements below. You can see sidewalks on both streets. The reason this is italicized is because if you'll jump down to number 7, this requirement would go away if the exemption is approved and allowed by the town council. So if the ribbon pavement is approved instead of curb and gutter, and then the sidewalks are waived, then this first condition would go away. In addition to that, the street tree requirement, this is a normal requirement in our UDO for conventional subdivisions. It's 1 tree per 45 linear feet plus 1 additional tree per lot. Erosion control permit should be obtained through the City of Winston-Salem. Fire and life safety infrastructure does meet the NC Fire Code requirements. The TRC comments must be remitted, and stormwater management permits must be obtained through the town of Louisville before issuing building and zoning permits. Again, 2 through 6 is normal conditions that we always put on major subdivisions requests, just to ensure that those final things are taken care of. And I believe that is all I have. If you'd like me to, I can share any screen that you need me to. I can share the major subdivision, the actual site plan, or I can share the letter requesting the waiver, or I'll entertain any questions that you may have. And also, the petitioners are here tonight. If you have any questions from them, we can promote them to panelists so they can answer questions as well.
Yeah. Mr. Smithman.
Stacy, I noticed that the two back lots looked fairly large for a small house, but I'm thinking it's because the terrain looked to me like it was pretty severe in the back. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. At first they came through and it was only about 4 lots that they were proposing. But they went back to the drawing board because water and sewer is available at this location. So they wanted to maximize the number of lots they were able to get. So that's where they came up with the 7 lots. So again, with the terrain and lot sizes, and that's the maximum number that they could get.
I got a couple of questions, please.
Franklin, certainly.
The lot that they're proposing that will adjoin Louisville Clemens Road, that will not provide any cut through from Kelwin Lane to Louisville Clemens Road, other than where currently, if I lived on Kelwin Lane, I would have to access Louisville Clemens Road. Is that correct?
That is correct. That'll be a standalone single family residence that would be built on that lot. It would not allow a cut through.
And an additional question, to provide sewer to these lots, will they run it down Kelwin Drive or how will they connect to the sewer? Do you know?
I am not 100% sure on that one. I know it's available in the area.
I will say Kelwin has been there so long that I don't know if those houses are currently on sewer or septic as far as Kelwin Lane is concerned. And I'm just wondering how these lots tie into sewer and whether it would provide, if the developer has to run it down the street, number one, provide them an opportunity to tie on to public sewer. And number two, if they do run it down Kelwin Lane, I know that is a town street and we have repairs afterwards and so forth.
I want to say that sewer is available down Kelwin.
Okay, well, it may be. I'm not questioning it. I know the street behind it, which I do not know the name, which was all new, ties in through the other neighborhoods that I think Mike and David might live in, going toward the Reynolds Creek. I just didn't know how these particular lots would tie into it.
Yeah, I could check on that to be 100% sure.
Stace, maybe one of the folks who are with us can answer that question.
Alex or Bruce, either one, if you're listening, if you'd raise your hand, if we can provide. Okay, Alex, yeah, he is the surveyor engineer that did this project. So Hank, there he goes. He can help me out with this.
Okay, you got me?
I do. Hey, Alex.
Good evening. The answer to the question is there is existing sanitary sewer currently, and it terminates with a manhole that's about the middle of lot 2 shown on the site plan. Mm-hmm. We would propose to extend the sewer another 100 feet or so to access the remainder of the lots and provide access for sewer. And then, of course, there's also existing water that runs out on the opposite side of the street. It would not require any additional extension.
Thank you, Alex. That's what I was thinking, but I was not 100% sure on that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Stacy, what exemptions other than curb and, or other than curb and gutter and sidewalk are they asking for? Are they asking for an exemption on street trees too?
No, sir. It's only sidewalk and curb and gutter.
Okay, very good. Any additional questions for Stacy? Mr. Franklin?
I'll make a motion to approve this with the exemption for not having to have curb and gutter. We have done this previously with Ashley Forest is one that I do know, off of Grapevine Road, where we've got the same type of situation. I think they're currently building 5 or 6 houses at a small cul-de-sac there.
Right. Mr. Franklin makes a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Smitherman makes the second. Any further discussion? Mr. Smitherman?
Approve.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Aye.
Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous. Congratulations and thank you for your investment in our community. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, council.
Ms. Tolbert, did you say, who else was with Alex?
Bruce.
He just raised his hand. I'm going to allow him to speak if that's okay with everyone.
Certainly.
Hi, Mr. Hubbard.
Hello. Thank you for your support and vote. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Great. If I may just think, I heard only that the waiver that in the motion talked about curb and gutter, but that it also would include the sidewalks. Is that correct?
That was included in the motion. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to confirm that. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you again for the support, and we're very excited about it. Matter of fact, the house next door to the lot on Louisville Clemens Road was the one we moved into when we first came back to North Carolina. So I'm very familiar with that piece of property.
Very good.
So much. Okay, goodbye.
Very good. Our next piece of business is an unfinished item that we've been talking about for a number of months. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Foster. This is a kind of an update on the work we're doing with our boards and committees. Ms. Foster.
Mayor. Oh, and whoever that was. So for purposes of timing, it's 7:18. What we wanted to do tonight was to give you all a brief overview, knowing that there's going to be some more updates probably in November and December. So that being said, know that everything that I'm mentioning here, you're going to be getting a piece of paper in your inbox that outlines this more specifically. So that's number one. That'll be coming next week. We wanted to go over, update you on 3 items. One, where we've been, as Mayor mentioned, we've been working on this for a while, where we are currently and what's next. So where we've been, for those of you listening out there, Mr. Raybon was just talking about expenditures in the town and good use of taxpayer monies, et cetera. Well, one of our important investments, of course, are our people, the staff, but also boards and committees. So for those of you tuning in first time about this particular project, back in February, had a conversation with council when there was a retreat at that time for the new council in the year. And we were looking at how we can review our boards and committees and determine 3 things. One, how is their experience? Are they fulfilled? Is it meaningful work that they're doing? How is it working for the staff? What's that partnership like, et cetera? So that was number 1. Number 2 was a review of charters. It just so happened that the recycling committee had some interest in updating their charter based upon some new information that they were receiving out there in the environment. And so we thought that made some sense as well. And then finally, there's been a need to just have policies, procedures, orientation for new members, and just having some consistency. So we thought, wow, let's jump into this. So we started that process, outlined an executive summary for the council, as you all remember back in March, and then you know what happened from there. So once COVID hit, that entire effort was sort of, the brakes were pumped because everything then became about how do we meet? And that was just trying to figure out how council met. So most of the past several months and through the summer have been about the meeting process. So we figured out how to Zoom, council got involved with that. And then because of the needs of the planning board and meeting the needs of petitioners, et cetera, planning board was allowed to meet. And you'll remember that, I guess it was just at the last meeting in October 1st, last week, we actually as a council just approved for other boards and committees to meet remotely. So that's something that we've just said, okay, we can do that. But in the meantime, we've been having some conversations back in the summer to at least reach out to the boards and committees and say, hey, COVID's going on, but this is our intent. So we used that time to get some feedback from them, and they expressed some concerns and some issues that they had. And we said, all right, sounds good. So what it sounds like you're wanting to do for some of you is to have a meeting. We'll figure out how to make that happen. And we had suggested that they contact the manager if they had a particular need, because with staffing and all of the unconventionality going on, it made sense to just say, if you've got a need, go forward and let Hank know. Well, what we stumbled upon the past few weeks is Hank had indicated he hadn't heard from any chairs about needs per se, other than some possible in-person projects. I think, Hank, you had talked about the fall sweep, for example. There was some interest in some folks saying, hey, could we do these projects that we've typically done? And the concern was, we don't want to necessarily support that because, and I don't want to steal your terminology or thunder here, Hank, but anything where people would gather, the staff wasn't comfortable approving that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So that had happened, but meanwhile, what was also happening, and Mrs. Walker helped me out here, is because we were tied and are tied to the governor's state of emergency through our own state of emergency, again, a council approved process. And obviously the mayor is handling all of that. Mrs. Walker sends out notices on a regular basis that says, until further notice, there will be no more meetings unless approved by council. So in chatting with some random chairs that I was checking in with, it became apparent to me that there might have been some miscommunication where some of the chairs were thinking, well, you guys have made the decision as council where we shouldn't be meeting, whereas we had communicated our intent to the chairs to say, hey, if you've got a specific need, let's meet. So we're trying to clear that up over the past couple of weeks. And we know that planning board is sort of under control, correct, Stacy? I mean, you feel like that's being managed. Parks and Rec also, Stacy and Hank have got that queued up for a meeting, I think, what, next week? And
yes,
that's going to tie to some of the Part F and master planning that you all know about. And beautification has expressed an interest in meeting as soon as possible. I know recycling has an interest, and we'll be checking in with the others. So know that we discovered where there was a little breakdown in communication. We're rectifying and getting those meetings scheduled. Folks will be talking to Hank, and then we'll know more after that. So we're expecting that you're going to have some more updates in November in terms of what those folks are interested in moving forward on. But here's what we need next from you all. Getting all the way back to the original intent of finding out how the boards and committees experience is. We've developed some items for getting their feedback. What we'd like to do in terms of developing that survey, it's soft right now, is before finalizing questions, have you all as a council, individual members, take a look at the issues that we're interested in inquiring about and see what you think. Have we got it all? Have we missed something, et cetera? So you can expect that next week. So again, other than giving you another update in November and again in December, because there are going to be several things, I'm sure Stacy will be speaking at some point in time about comp plan and the whole Parks and Rec. All of this is going to start really pulling the whole board and committee membership together in terms of their feedback as key advisors to the council. So with that, I'll pause and see if anyone has any questions.
Yes, Jean Marie.
Go ahead, Ms. Welch.
Yes, Jean Marie. So my understanding is next week we will receive a list of possible questions that will be asked, what we would like to see from the different committees.
Right. They're the issues, not the exact questions. We'll then take your feedback and then craft the exact questions to develop that survey. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Marie and the team, or I'm not sure who all was involved in this for doing it, but thank you guys very much. One question, is there a timeline on this that you're wanting? I mean, I know you're going to send that information to us, but to get out this survey, is there a timeline on that survey, or is that something you are still formulating?
The survey, we're hoping, Mr. Manager, the communication specialist, is that Jeannie's title? She had done some of the groundwork for finding a software program. Hank had an initial discussion, I think, with Pam. Again, you guys can jump in here. But my understanding is that can be accessed. It has not been purchased yet, correct, Hank?
That's correct, but that's just as quick as just getting it done and downloading it.
Right. So I would think would be a very reasonable expectation to have that completed no later than November. I would offer before that, but given where we are with the timing of October, and then having some feedback, the latest at the regular meeting. Do we have a regular meeting in December? We do, don't we?
Briefing and regular meeting, yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So at the latest, the updates in or the regular meeting, or preferably the briefing in December. And plus, we're also going to be matching that with getting feedback from the staff as well, because again, that's a real key partnership. And what we're finding is, where the things are working, we want to reinforce that, but where there might be some bumps in terms of some communication or understanding, et cetera, we want us to surface that so that council can be aware and we can fix what needs to be fixed.
I mean, Jane, to elaborate just for a second, we weren't looking to dive in and do an extensive fishing trip with the council, with the committees and boards. This originated from a discussion that we had noticed that there were some boards and committees where absenteeism was starting to increase. And so we wanted to try to get a feel for where those members were. And there were really three key issues that we wanted to address. Number one, did they feel that they were doing meaningful work? We heard some ancillary comments of, well, you're just giving us stuff that really is not very important. Number two, did they feel like their contributions as a board or committee were making a meaningful difference to the community? And number three, I think as important, did they feel appreciated for the work that they were doing? So those were the three key areas that we wanted to try to work with our committees on. I think as I expressed at our briefing, my antenna, I guess, is going up. I'm getting a little antsy about committees and boards starting to feel not as enthusiastic about participating with the town because we've not used them for a number of months. Beautification, parks and recreation, they're going to be integral to how we move forward with the community center. We have a couple of projects for recycling that are going to be important. So we want to accelerate this and get these folks engaged again, but we want to be sure, I think that's what Jean Maria is trying to do, to be sure that we evaluate how we're doing on those three criteria that we talked about so that we then can address those. I mean, maybe we're doing great, but maybe we're not doing so great. So I think that's the framework we're examining right now, if that helps.
That's very helpful, as a matter of fact, because if you all, when you get the document next week, if you all can keep in mind, actually what I'll probably do is take what the mayor just said, because he's mentioned that many, many times whenever he's brought up boards and committees, and I'll put that at the top of your document so that you can have that context and be reminded of that when you're looking at the ultimate content for the survey instrument we're trying to prepare.
Perfect. Any questions for Jean Marie?
And it's Joyce, Stacy, Hank, and myself who are tapping into this, and I'll be tapping. I'm going to watch what happens here in your corner. Mr. Smitherman, I'll be tapping Mr. Smitherman as also a previous chair of the Parks and Rec Committee.
All right. Thank you for that extra work, all that time to this committee.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, we're down to new business. Stacy, I believe you have the first item, and this is to set a public hearing for our pedestrian connection overlay district. Give us a little primer for that public hearing. I'm sorry, Ms. Hunt, did you want to say something?
I don't know where we're at. I mean, I see where we're at on the agenda. I'm not sure how much longer you intend, or as a group, we intend on going. If there, can we get like a 2 or 3 minute, or we just have the permission to walk away if we have to go to the restroom?
No, let's just take a brief break. I think that probably is warranted.
Okay.
That way we don't look like we're what is it, match game or whatever it is, where people are up and flying around all over the place. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take about a 5-minute break here. Please stick with us. We've got a number of important items coming up on our agenda. A number of them are going to be very interesting. I think you'll be well informed about the activities that are coming up for the town, because frankly, you all pay the bill for it. So with that, we're going to take about 5 minutes. It's 7:30 right now, so about 7:35.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Stace, if you'll proceed. I know you're there someplace. There you are.
Yeah. So tonight we have Resolution 2020-062. This is a resolution to set a public hearing for Thursday, November 12th at 6 p.m. for UDO L161. And what that text amendment is regarding is the pedestrian connections overlay. I'll do a very extensive briefing at our next meeting before the public hearing, but just to give you a little background, I spoke at last meeting regarding this about where it comes from. It's been February, March when the planning board first started, or when we last talked about it. We since had our own public hearing for a text amendment, which is something that's required, but it's essentially waiver requirements and alternative compliance additions to the UDO to give a developer or a property owner a little bit different avenue rather than paying a fee in lieu of or not having to pay a fee in lieu of to construct sidewalks if that particular project is along a road that a sidewalk improvement is called for in our greenway and pedestrian plan. So tonight it's just to set a public hearing for that. And what that does is, for the public's sake, is just allows me, it gives me the opportunity, since it's placed on an agenda for a public hearing, then I will do newspaper ads and the proper notifications that general statute requires us to do for public hearings.
Any questions for Stacy?
I got a quick question.
Mr. Franklin, certainly.
You're going to give us more detailed information on this, either through email or at our next, at the briefing for November.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-62.
Second.
Very good. I think Mr. Franklin made the motion and Ms. Foster, I believe, made the second. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is to set a public hearing for November 12th. Any additional discussion? Mr. Smitherman.
Aye.
You moved around. Everybody's moved around on me now on my screen, so I've got lost. Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Hunt.
Aye.
Ms. Welch. Oh, Ms. Welch, I think you were on mute.
Sorry, aye.
Very good. Mr. Franklin.
Aye.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Stacy, you also have the next one, and this is the work you all have been doing on the downtown overlay district.
Yes, this is resolution 2020-063, setting a public hearing for the same night, Thursday, November 12th, for UDO L162. A little background on this. This is our downtown overlay. In our ordinance, in our downtown overlay, we've got definitions that are scattered throughout. Those definitions need to be updated. And if you'll recall, there's a lot of different areas between preferred land use and the comprehensive plan, different ordinances that have been approved and adopted throughout the years. And there's not a definitive map, just a one go-to map that shows us what properties are included or not included, what the boundary is of that downtown overlay. And so the planning board, this is a project that we've been working on prior to COVID. Like I said, it was a good experience for us to be able to get around the table with a map and highlighters. I think we all enjoyed that, but we'd like to get back to that, I think. But in order for us to have an actual, the town to have a go-to map for that is easily understandable and is, can be easily changed if it needs to be in the future and so forth. And so to make it an actual official codified map of our downtown overlay and the definitions to follow that.
Thank you. Any questions for Stacy? We'll entertain a motion.
Move for second.
Mr. Smitherman makes the motion. Ms. Welch makes the second. Any further discussion? Very good. Ms. Welch,
Aye.
Ms. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Franklin,
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman,
Aye.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous, and that is a public hearing that will also occur at our November 12th meeting. Pam, you have a budget ordinance for us, please?
Yes, we have ordinance 202044. This is to amend budget ordinance 2020-001 in the amount of $20,000 to increase the appropriation in the budget for various stormwater drainage repairs that will pop up throughout the year.
Council members, we were briefed on this last Thursday, and Ms. Orell feels that we need to put a little padding in there because we're going through that money quicker than we had anticipated. Any questions for Pam? With that, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Franklin
Motion
makes
to
a motion. Do need a second. Ms. Hunt makes the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch,
Aye.
Ms. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Smithman,
Aye.
Mr. Franklin,
Aye.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor is aye, and that is unanimous as well. Joyce, you're going to give us some wishful thinking here with this next update, right?
Yes, I am. We have to move forward with paperwork and be prepared just in case the governor lifts everything and we can have our Christmas parade. So I'm preparing ordinance 2020-045 for approval just in case.
Any questions for Joyce? We'll entertain a motion. Mr. Smithman makes the motion. Ms. Hunt makes the second. Any further discussion? Very good. Ms. Welch,
Aye.
Ms. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Smithman,
Aye.
Mr. Franklin,
Aye.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous as well. Hank, you have some information on Title IX discrimination policy.
Yes, it's Title VI. It's a part of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And what this Title VI has to do with is a policy saying that we will not have any discrimination for anyone that is in the recipient of federally funded funds. And the DOT traditionally has this requirement for it. We have this requirement now because we are a subset of DOT as it relates to transportation projects, and that a lot of our projects are funded with federal funds. So what we have before you this evening for your consideration is the improvement. Excuse me, Boone's going nuts. The approval of our Title VI discrimination policy, as well as the necessary forms for someone who feels aggrieved to file a complaint.
Very good. And I believe we have some thank yous that go out to Mr. Buffkin and Mr. Waite in the village of Clemens for sharing with them, sharing us the work they had done. Thank you folks very much for being great neighbors. Any questions for Hank? Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Yep.
Dr. Sadler makes the motion. Ms. Foster makes the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch,
Aye.
Ms. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Hunt,
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman,
Aye.
Mr. Franklin,
Aye.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor is aye. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is going to the dogs here very quickly, I'm afraid.
Mayor, may I be recognized, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Before we go any further, I would just like to ask Stacy, with that resolution 202063 about the downtown overlay, it would be very helpful for me when you present that, if you have photographs of the properties that will be included in that.
Okay.
So you
Yes.
see, what's already built there, et cetera, if that's appropriate to ask for.
Absolutely. There is a map that will also be adopted with that text amendment. It will become part of the appendix of the ordinance. So that will be part of, we actually have a couple of maps one of our planning board members has been Joseph Sloop. He actually is the GIO for Forsyth County, the GIS guy. And so he has been kind enough to make a couple different maps for us. One showing where the Great Wagon Road goes through, and then one showing what outlying properties at one time were included that are no longer included. So I'll put all of that in my presentation as well.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, the next set of ordinances that we'll be working on are funding ordinances. This has to do with the sidewalk repair projects that Mr. Moser presented to us last week. Ryan, do you want to give us just a quick overview, and then we'll move into the funding motions?
Sure. So as again, like we spoke last week, we're going to have three contractors: the concrete contractor, LEI, who will be the electrical contractor, and then WD Wright, which is the safety traffic control. So those are three contractors. We're going through downtown and replacing some sidewalk that has either been damaged by large trucks running over them or just age. They're just deteriorating. Unfortunately, when the streetlights were installed downtown, the installer laid conduit on top of the ground, and then they poured the sidewalk directly on top of that conduit. So we have to bust the conduit will be damaged every time if there is conduit underneath that sidewalk, we're going to have to replace those electrical lines as well. So it's going to come at a cost, and unfortunately, it's just going to be an ongoing thing. Every time we have to replace sidewalk where there are street lights, we're going to come into that problem.
Dr. Sadler, Mr. Franklin, it seemed to make sense when we first did this a number of years ago when we did sidewalks that this was a good idea, but I guess we learn as we go along.
I've got a question though. When you break the sidewalk up and you repair the conduit, is that still going to be above ground, or are you going to place that now underground away from this problem?
Well, we talked about it's almost, I've spoken to LEI and they're almost in the opinion that it's just one of those ongoing things. It could be done underground. It's an issue of making the joint so you can push that wire. If you've got a 5-foot section and you turn it down 90 degrees to get below grade, you're not going to be able to push that wire as you should be able to. So unfortunately, it's a no-win situation. Mr. Franklin, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. When you say it was laid on the ground and concrete was poured on top of it, it seems to me that the concrete could be taken out in a manner such that you would expose the current conduit prior to digging deeper, in a sense of the word. I'm not sure, if it was laid down into the gravel, the conduit was laid into the gravel below where the concrete was poured. And I recognize that where it has buckled at, and we do have situations like that, it has probably buckled the conduit, and there need to be repairs and things of that nature. So I guess my point is here, we really don't know exactly, because you can't see through concrete. Others can't see through concrete until we get into the concrete. So the method that the concrete is removed while this is going on will determine the outcome of this project. Is that correct?
Yes. So these numbers that I'm going to give you, there are worst case scenario. What they're going to have to do is saw cut at the joints, and they're going to try to be easy with the saw cut. And hopefully, some places the conduit may not have floated up into the concrete, and we may get by with not having to fix those areas. But if you walk down Shelford Road, in some places you can see a crack that has formed in the middle of the sidewalk, and that's about exactly where that conduit is laid. But unfortunately, when they apparently when they poured the concrete, at some places the conduit actually floated up into the sidewalk. It actually happened down there. I saw it. I've got pictures of it. I could show you. Down at the new vet's office when they do some repair, when they cut into the entrance, they cut through the conduit. So, and it was actually floated up about halfway up into the sidewalk. So hopefully we don't come across that a lot, but I'm afraid we may.
Well, with what you just said, I will highly encourage that we have appropriate lockout tagout procedures anytime they go to be cutting through any of this sidewalk so nobody gets electrocuted. Okay.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Moser? Pam, you want to take them in order?
Yeah, the first one is a budget amendment. We have ordinance 2020-046, amending budget ordinance 2020-001 in the amount of $23,175 to budget for electrical repairs to be performed in conjunction with the sidewalk repairs. This would amount to $20,050, and to budget for traffic control needed in conjunction with the sidewalk repairs, which would be $3,125.
Any questions for Pam or Ryan? We'll entertain a motion. Mr. Smitherman makes the motion. Dr. Sadler makes the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch?
Approve.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Aye.
Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous. Thank you. Pam, next one, please.
Okay, the next one is a budget amendment, and just as a little background, when you passed the original budget in the spring, you budgeted $15,000 for sidewalk repairs, and we needed just a little bit more to complete this project. So this next budget ordinance bumps that up. So we have ordinance 2020-047, amending budget ordinance 2020-001 in the amount of $3,600 to increase the appropriation for sidewalk repairs in the PAL bill department to cover the cost of sidewalk repairs in the downtown area.
Any questions for Pam or Ryan? Mr. Franklin?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Mr. Franklin makes the motion. Ms. Foster makes the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Aye.
Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That's unanimous. Next one, please, Pam.
Okay, the next five are for contract approvals. The first is resolution 2020-067, awarding the contract for sidewalk repairs in the downtown area to Atlantic Coast Concrete of Clemens in an amount not to exceed $15,800.
Pam, we missed one.
Yeah, I think we got, let's go back to 202-0068. I think that's the first contract.
66.
Oh, I thought we had reordered
66.
them. Do I not have the latest agenda?
Yeah,
Yes,
we did reorder the,
Mayor, I believe that Ryan had asked us to put all the contracts for the construction work first, and then that's what we did. And we did the electrical and the traffic control as the last two items.
very good.
So-
So Pam, I guess
so-
we're talking about 66.
Or we need to do, no, 67. Ryan, you
yeah,
wanted
but-
to do you wanted to do the Atlantic Coast first.
Well, I was just trying to make the concrete, all three concrete contracts together, so it made more sense. But it doesn't matter which way we do it in.
Joyce, which one's next?
67 is first, then
Okay.
you had 69, and then you had 70. That's all, that was your, all of your sidewalk work.
Okay, so I'll read it one more time. Resolution 2020-067, awarding the contract for sidewalk repairs in the downtown area to Atlantic Coast Concrete of Clemens in an amount not to exceed $15,800.
Any questions for Pam?
Move for approval.
Ms. Welch makes the motion. Need a second, please?
Second.
Dr. Sadler makes the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Aye.
Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, next we
So-
have resolution 2020-069, awarding contract for sidewalk repairs near Lowe's Foods Drive to Atlantic Coast Concrete of Clemens in an amount not to exceed $2,800.
Any questions for Pam? We'll
So
entertain a motion.
moved.
Mr. Smitherman makes the motion.
Second.
Need a second. Ms. Hunt makes a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Aye.
Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor's aye, and that is unanimous.
Next, resolution 2020-070, awarding contract for sidewalk repairs for Shelford Square to Atlantic Coast Concrete of Clemens in an amount not to exceed $1,100.
Any questions for Pam? We'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Very good. Ms. Foster makes the motion. I'll leave Dr. Sadler make the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman?
Aye.
Franklin? Fred, I think you were muted.
Aye.
Very good. Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor is aye. That is unanimous. Now,
Next, resolution 2020-066, awarding contract for electrical repairs in conjunction with the sidewalk repairs to Louisville Electric in an amount not to exceed $20,050.
any questions for Pam? We'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Dr. Sadler makes the motion. Mr. Smitherman makes the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Aye.
Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous.
And lastly, resolution 2020-068, awarding the contract for traffic control in conjunction with the sidewalk repairs to W.D. Wright Contractors of Beaver, Pennsylvania for an amount not to exceed $3,125.
Any questions for Pam?
I have a question. Why do we have to go to Pennsylvania to get people to direct traffic?
I'll chime in here. This is the same outfit that does traffic control all over everywhere you've been, that just recently supported the gas line repair and all the plates. It's just a professional outfit, and there are certain OSHA requirements that everybody has to be trained to a certain level to set up the cones, to take down the cones, to provide the flagging, to provide the signs and so forth. And everybody has gone to this outfit. And obviously we can't, as a town, provide this service to ourselves. So with that being said, David, I'm going to make a motion to approve this resolution.
Oh, I don't have any, I'm saying it just seems to be a long ways away unless they've got remote places here in the States.
They do. If you go up off of Indiana Avenue, I forget the name of the street that runs between Patterson Avenue and Indiana Avenue, that's where they are based in this town, as far as Winston-Salem is concerned. And they provide these services, and that's what they do as professionals when it comes to traffic control and keeping everybody safe that is doing the work when they're working on the sidewalks, and keeping all of us safe as we're traveling through the areas that work is being conducted. It's just a national firm, and there is a certain level of training that must be provided to people that get out and do these types of services. So again, I make a motion to approve this resolution.
Is there a second? Dr. Sadler makes the second. Any further discussion?
Yes, another question to piggyback on David's concern. When we have events in the square, do we not have our off-duty sheriffs to be there for that type of traffic control, et cetera?
You do on occasion?
I'll chime in on that. We're dealing with private streets most of the time currently with David McKee Street and with the Great Wagon Road segment that we have around our square, such as tomorrow when there's going to be a COVID screening event and so forth. We can deal with those as a town. We can't deal with Shelford Road, Louisville Clemens Road, and things of that nature with our town staff when these types of projects are going on.
Because those are state road. Is that why?
Not necessarily because it's a state road because of the volume, but yes, because it's a state road. And that's not necessarily a requirement, but the circumstances are different. When we have a food truck festival or anything else around town square, we have control currently of the Great Wagon Road and of David McKee Street, not necessarily North Street.
Mr. Moser.
It would also be a liability. David and I are both certified in flagging. But for one thing, we don't have the time to do it. But if we were flaggers and something happened, somebody could come against the town. If something happens with Wright, they will be responsible. So that's a whole lot of the reason. Because I thought about having us flag, and then I said, this makes no sense. We need to hire this out, because if something was to happen, Lord forbid, we would be in a mess.
Very good. Could we possibly have any more discussion?
Call the question.
Ms. Welch calls the question. Ms. Welch.
Aye.
Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman.
Aye.
Mr. Franklin.
Aye.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is unanimous. Ryan, you have some information for us on a paving contract that you'd like us to approve that we discussed at briefing.
Yes, sir. I have gone out for bid for the roads that I have chosen. Yadkin Valley Paving came in with the lower bid at $252,725.60. Those roads that I chose were Peak Road, Tuscany Drive, and Tuscany Court. I believe Joyce has sent you the information in regards to that. Are there any questions from anybody?
Franklin, I believe you earlier suggested that you might have some discussion here.
Yes. When I saw what Ryan had provided to us here in these the paving contract that we got yesterday, I made a point to go out and ride down these roads. Peak Road, again, is in bad shape. And that was one of the original 3 roads, maybe 4 roads that the town paved when we took in our road system. Again, Granlund Drive, Dexter Drive, and Peak Road are ones that resound in my memory, and there may be some others. The Tuscany Street, looking back to what the consultant tonight, Mr. Wilson, said, the alligator cracking, I think, was the lowest level. Block cracking was the lowest level. I'm not so sure I saw that. I saw no potholes, if you will, on that road. A little uneven surface coming back up the Shelford Road at the entrance. I'm not so sure what all we're doing, other than Ryan has indicated that milling and all these other things need to be done on this road. Now, I want to be clear that I support our spring and fall paving seasons, and I have not, at this point in time, had an opportunity to look at what the consultant provided street by street by street. Somehow I did not get the opportunity to see that. And I've just got concerns. If I was living in that particular neighborhood of Tuscany and had the streets that I saw yesterday, I'm not sure that I would. I don't even see where garbage trucks are damaging the road, where they have to turn around and in the court or at the end of Tuscany Lane and that type of stuff. So as we go forward, I don't know where we go, but I do support the fact that we need to do a spring and a fall paving season. I don't like the fact when it comes to fall paving season that we're dealing with this in October when the season is coming to a close in November. And when the last time they paved Sonata Drive, it snowed that night. Years ago, several years ago, when Sonata Drive was done at Shelford Lakes. So I would recommend as we go forward that the Public Works Director bring to us the intended fall schedule at such a point that we could deal with it in September and maybe award the contracts and so forth as we go, as we proceed into October, but not wait until October just to find out which streets he's recommended for paving. So I'm sorry I dumped my bucket, but we've got a new Public Works Director, and as we go forward, I just want us to look at where we're at. And I do support spending POW bill money, which I heard earlier tonight. We can't spend POW bill money on Peak Road, but at the same time, where do we go from here? And the traffic volumes that are on these particular roads, since they're cul-de-sac and so forth. And I've said my two pieces. We'll see where it goes.
Ryan, just for information, do you have a breakout of what the project costs for Tuscany are and what the project costs for Peak are?
So Peak, what we're doing is full depth patching, because the full depth patching is where the alligator cracking is. We're not paving the whole road. $35,789.76 is Peak Road.
Okay.
Tuscany Drive, we will be doing full depth patching where there's alligator cracking. As we spoke earlier, it has curbing, so you almost have to profile mill, which means you mill a foot to 2 feet on both sides of the road, which is quite expensive. There's also a process called chip sealing, which we will put down before we do the overlay, which will allow there not to be reflective cracking back through the asphalt. So in 5 years, you don't have, if we didn't do that, if you just paved over it in 5 to 6 years, there could be reflective cracking come back through the asphalt. So Tuscany Drive comes to a total of $187,415.84. Same process I just spoke of on Tuscany Drive is on Tuscany Court for a total of $29,520.
Very good. And we do notify residents on those streets when we get ready to do the project so they can plan accordingly.
Yeah, I believe it's in the bid or in the contract that they'll notify within 7 to 10 days prior to them going out, and they'll set signs up and let the folks know.
Very good. Any questions for Ryan? With that, we'll entertain a motion.
I will. Can I say one
yes,
more
sir. Yes, sir.
I do plan on trying to, as Bob was saying earlier, trying to stretch our dollar and make here coming up soon before it gets cold, Fred, to do some crack sealing to stretch these roads that do have, and as in the survey, he notes which roads need to be crack sealed, so we can go ahead and crack seal those so they don't get to the alligator issue.
I look forward to seeing the list of all roads that for some reason I have not had the opportunity to look at yet.
And I apologize. I was looking at my emails and somehow I sent it to the mayor and left you out. I think I have sent it to you. You should have it now though.
Well, I can't look at it right now.
Okay, I apologize.
I did read it twice though, Ryan.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When you do the full depth patching, do you also seal that road as well, or is that not needed, or what happens other than the section that's going to be the full depth patch?
Full depth is a little bit more than milling. Milling is just milling down whatever the desired depth is. Full depth is when you're getting all the way down to the gravel.
Right.
So that alligator crack won't come back.
Right. No, what I meant, Ryan, is the rest of that road, you said only a portion of that road is severely damaged. The remainder of the road, is it going to have any kind of treatment or not?
So it's going to be full depth patches in the areas that I've marked. And then they're going to completely cover the whole road with chip seal, which those chip seals fall into those cracks where there are block cracking and we're not doing the full depth. It'll fill those cracks in, and then we'll go overlay the whole area. So it'll almost be like it's brand new.
All right. And all of that at that price?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any additional questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Ordinance number is 2020072.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Mr. Smithland makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Sadler makes the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Welch?
Aye.
Ms. Foster?
Aye.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Smithland?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Nay.
Dr. Sadler?
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That is 6-1 with Mr. Franklin in opposition. Very good.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I heard Councilman Franklin say that there was a road paved and then it snowed. What sort of warranty comes with these paving jobs?
I wish I had the answer for that. From what I recollect, there is and I could be wrong. I don't want to misspeak.
Right.
I may have to just come back with that answer, but
Right.
I think there's a 1-year warranty. I could be wrong, but I'll get that answer for you.
That's what's in the contract I just read that we just approved. 1 year.
So I guess the question I have, I heard what you said, Fred. Do you recall whether that 1-year warranty covered that road that was done the way you described it, or did the road break down after that period?
Ken, I do not drive Sonata Drive every day, obviously. I don't live in the neighborhood.
Right.
But the last time I went down through it, it has held up the last 2 to 3 years from when it was done.
Okay.
It even made me think that maybe chilling it down quickly was the way to do some paving. But obviously, pavers don't go out and pave the day before it snows. Okay?
Right.
So, I mean, again, you know, I'm not sure we're making the right selections this time with our fall paving schedules. The reason I voted negative on this one.
Okay.
Very good. Hank, we're up to administrative reports.
Okay, the first I'd like to say is that I think we mentioned this earlier in the meeting. This coming Monday, we will have a meeting with the Parks and Rec plan, and we are to go over the joint comprehensive plan and the Parks Recreation Development Master Plan. And council, of course, has authorized the Parks and Recreation Committee to meet and discuss this. Next, the planning board has been authorized to have an in-person meeting for council in council chambers with the Solomon Development using proper social distancing and other COVID-19 guidelines. And Stacy, you have anything to add to that?
There was some differences in schedules, and so that in-person meeting, as of right now, is going to be held at our November meeting, which will be November the 18th. The October meeting, for lack of agenda items, we are not having a planning board meeting next week, but in hopes that we can meet on October 28th. That meeting will, of course, will be via Zoom. But once we have our meeting Monday with Parks and Rec, then we will be picking up and moving forward with our comp plan and Parks and Rec plan project. So,
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Does that mean that the planning board, following the briefing, agreed or decided to have their meeting in person based on the council's resolution?
I can answer that. When we met at our last meeting, the chair and I posed to them what we would be meeting about. We would be meeting in person with the developer, and if we had council's direction to do so, was it okay for everybody to meet in person? Everybody was okay with that. One of our planning board members said that she wanted us to meet in council chambers so that we could social distance, and also that everybody would be required to wear masks. That's the only feedback that I was given from the planning board members. I have since sent out an email this week to them, letting them know that what we had talked about at the last council meeting, that we had been given direction that we can meet in person, reiterated that it would be an in-person meeting to speak with the developer of Solomon Development for some guidance on his project. That there's not a site plan before us now, but it's just to have some dialogue between the planning board and him as far as what was denied and kind of what the next steps are moving forward. And again, posed the question to the planning board. There was 4 criteria that I gave them: that the meeting was warranted in person, that we would social distance, everyone would be required to wear masks, and that it would be held in council chambers, of course. And I have since gotten feedback from one planning board member that thought that we had already decided to move forward with an in-person meeting. One that asked if it was going to be discussed further, and then one that said he was okay with moving forward. That is 3 out of 7. Everyone else I have not heard from. I haven't had any other feedback from the planning board members for that.
Ms. Foster.
So Ms. Talbert, thank you for that. So what you're saying is you were doing your due diligence and reaching out to them,
yes,
to determine if they thought it was warranted to meet in person per the request from the last council. Have I got that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you're still in the process of getting that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think everybody, the planning board members, understand that that's what we're going to do. We're going to meet in person. I think some of them are in a little bit of limbo because it was almost like we had already voted or we had already decided to meet in person. As long as we got council direction, well, then we got council direction, and then now I'm kind of going back to asking them, are we going to meet in person? So I think some of them are in a little bit of limbo with different understandings, but hopefully that email that I sent will clear that up.
Okay. So my question is separate. And still to Stacy, since we're under administrative reports, I have a question about our planning board. You said earlier about where was it? The resolution that you're going to bring next time for, I can't remember which one it was, the public hearing, and the definitions. That was a downtown overlay. So yes, the definitions that you were referencing, those don't tie to what we surfaced when we were looking at the Solomon development with some of the confusion around definitions. These are definitions specifically relate to
the downtown overlay and where exactly that boundary is.
Okay.
Yeah. The downtown overlay text amendment doesn't have any. We were started on that prior to the Solomon development case. So this is just, well, and you'll see that in the information that I send out. But it's just to get a definitive of what that boundary is, and then those definitions. Because the downtown gateway area, the definition of that should be in the gateway area of the downtown overlay, and then the core area should be, from the roundabouts to in front of Lowe's Foods, so that it defines more clearly what those areas and what those boundaries are.
I didn't think so, because that all happened way before all of this. I get that, but I just want to make sure. And specifically, since at the September 21st meeting, which the minutes of which we just approved, Councilwoman Foster wanted to make sure that human scale is addressed and would like town council and planning board to clarify those items for the downtown in the next couple of months. Now that was in the minutes. That was Councilwoman Foster speaking. It ties to what Mr. Raban, that's the pronunciation of his name, mentioned when he chimed in earlier. I'm wondering, Stacy, if you could either now or maybe you could get back to us on the timeline for surfacing those things that we recognize there was confusion around and some need for clarity, and how planning board will pursue that to clarify sooner than later.
I think that in itself, those discussions will start at that in-person meeting, because there's not only myself, the planning board, town council, and even other developers out there that are interested in the downtown area. What does that mean? You know, what does that look like? And so I believe that's about when those conversations will start.
So you're thinking that that conversation will be held with the petitioner, and I'm looking at also having a separate parallel track where we would, regardless as to who the petitioner is, define what that is for the town separately.
Well, I think too, a lot of that will be, you know, surface in our comprehensive plan, because a comprehensive plan in itself is supposed to be a vision. What do we want our town to look like? And I know one of the things that we talked about in the planning board is having a specific downtown area or downtown section of our comprehensive plan. What types of uses do we want to see there? What, you know, does facade requirements need to change? Those types of things. And so I think it'll surface then as well, to not only get just a planning board or council take on it, but, you know, the residents of Louisville, what's their take on it as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I think, Stacy, from what Jean Marie was just saying as well, is it seems uncomfortable to do that with the petitioner there, that's something that needs to be discussed and codified or whatever, just with the planning board.
I understand that. You know, I get that as well. I think too, though, with what's before us is right now we have a plan where it was denied based on human scale. And so, you know, some of the questions surrounding that is, okay, well, if it doesn't meet human scale, well, what will it meet? Or what, you know, and I think what the petitioner is wanting to do is have those conversations back and forth and that dialogue with the planning board surrounding human scale, because that was one of the main interpretations that council made, that this project did not meet human scale. And so I think too, you know, with those conversations, I mean, they don't necessarily have to start there, but I assume that is a lot of what we will be talking about, due to the fact that that's why the project, you know, one of the big reasons why the project was denied. It was based on human scale, or based on the magnitude and size of the building.
I just don't see how that discussion can take place before planning board has had the discussion and decided, and then be able to submit to any petitioner what they are.
I can talk to the chair. We are going to have a meeting on October the 28th. That's our next scheduled planning board meeting. We could try to discuss it then.
Yeah, I feel like the planning board is probably going to be able to work that conversation in and move in the appropriate direction.
Jane, I don't think that the meeting that's going to occur on the 18th is going to provide the definition for human scale. I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion, at least for a little while, until there's at least some kind of agreement what that is, and you know, that's going to be the tough one. That's going to be really interesting. And so I don't think that at that meeting on the 18th, that's not where the definition of human scale is going to arrive at. It's going to be a planning board process.
No, I mean, I agree with that. I'm just saying it doesn't seem fair to a petitioner even to just have that discussion when it hasn't been finalized. I think they'd just be given opinions. So I guess as long as he understands that they're just taking information at that point, I don't think it really gives them any definitive, you know, descriptions of it.
Yeah, I think your point's well taken, Jane. Sure.
Okay.
Anything else? Hank, do you want to go back and do the events at Shelford Square? I know they're loaded up, or any town holidays. Nope, you're muted. There we go.
There we go. There's not really a thing for October for it, but I will make note that moving into November, town offices will be closed on Wednesday, November 11th, in observance of the Veterans Day holiday for the town.
Very good. Any questions for Hank? Ms. Hunt?
Yes, sir. Hank, the meeting that everyone was just referencing with the planning board and the petitioner, that's going to be available to the public via Facebook Live. Is there plans in place for that at this time?
We're not going to utilize Facebook Live, but we are going to utilize Zoom, and that will allow people that are not feeling like they're safe for attendance in place, like for instance, our town clerk or any members of the planning board to attend like that. So we're going to have that in place to bolster the lack of space in the room.
Well, with Zoom, we have the ability to go live on Facebook. We won't be doing channel 6 or Zoom. I mean, or Facebook.
We channel 6 may be a little hard, but Zoom is certainly easy. Our intent was not to use Facebook for this meeting.
So is this a planning board meeting? Help me understand why we're not making it accessible to the public through Facebook or channel 6.
Stacy, you got any input on this?
Well, a little bit, mainly because of a lot of the backlash that some staff, planning board members, the petitioner have received on Facebook. The planning board, it is a regular scheduled planning board meeting. It is available to the public. They can utilize Zoom. They can click on the link and get to that meeting. They can participate in the meeting, and as space allows, they can physically come and participate that way as well.
Let me get a clarification here, and I know we're diving into this probably more than we need to. Stace, this is a, and Jean Marie, I don't think we've ever had as what we would call this the H squared meetings. I don't think we've ever broadcasted those in the past.
We've never broadcast planning board ever.
Yeah.
Period.
Now we are doing that. The public has been able to tune in to planning board meetings when there's a public hearing. But as a general rule, we have not been broadcasting any of our planning board meetings. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'm going back to since this is not a public hearing, or is it one of those situations where we're looking for public input, that this is a clarification meeting for the planning board and the petitioner? Is there a reason why we would break with what we've done in the past and make this a Zoom or a Facebook meeting?
I guess, well, Mrs. Hunt, you brought this up, so I don't want to speak for you, but I think there's what planning board did pre-COVID, and then there's what the town has done post-COVID. And there's been an expectation now that we've set where the town has been invited to participate, observe through Facebook Live. And I'm reading between the lines, and Stacy was pretty clear, also not between the lines, that it sounds like some of the backlash that came through from the public on Facebook is one of the drivers for you all deciding not to broadcast through that venue. Is that right?
Well, that and the fact that our in-person meetings, like the mayor mentioned, have never been broadcast on Channel 6 or on Facebook. They've been in person, so people were able to attend that way. We feel like we are still giving the public an opportunity. If they can get on Facebook, then they can just as easily get on Zoom. And so it's, we feel like that avenue for them to be able to participate is still there. And they can even more so participate on Zoom than they can on Facebook, because, public comment is not accepted on Facebook. They're just making their own comments.
Yeah.
Could I raise a question here?
Certainly.
Because I'm confused. Back at our October 1st briefing meeting, at about the 1 hour and 30 minute mark, even maybe before that, and definitely after that, we started talking about high howdy meetings and so forth. And during that discussion, I raised a question about an item 3, counseling meetings for October. I should have said before I started this conversation, we do not have the draft meeting minutes of our October 1st meeting, so I could not refer to that tonight. And I spent about 25, 30 minutes tonight going back and looking at Facebook to see what was said during the time and trying to scroll around and so forth. But if my recollection is correct, we basically in that item 3 said that we would cancel all meetings for the month of October, like we have been doing during this crisis, unless the council directed specifically to a board or committee to hold a meeting. And we, if you will, authorize the planning board to hold a meeting on October the 18th. And we also authorized the joint meeting of the Parks and Recreation meeting, which is just was covered there. But today, Joyce sent out a message or a notice where the planning board has canceled the meeting this month and rescheduled for November. And I don't believe we give them the authority to do that as a council. We specifically were talking about October is my point of the matter here. And you know how I like to look at points of matter to make sure that we're doing things the way we should be doing. So I'm not sure that they can hold this meeting because we have not specifically. And if we do allow them to hold this meeting without us taking an action to specifically allow them to do that in the month of November, then we're giving them carte blanche as far as this one particular board is concerned. So we need to go back and revisit that. We need to look at the what was said at October 1st briefing meeting. And again, I have not had the opportunity to review the tapes in more than I did in about 20, 25 minutes today after I got home from work. So I'll say that and then let anybody else chime in.
Mr. Franklin and Ms. Walker, correct me if I'm wrong, but the committees and boards schedule their own meetings. They don't come to council and say, "May we schedule a meeting?" And they have meetings when they need to have them. They postpone meetings when they have to postpone them, or they do whatever. But that's their prerogative to schedule their own meetings. Is that correct?
That part is correct, but Stacy had apparently spoken with the chair. Stacy, if you want to talk about the cancellation.
Stick with me just for a second, because I'm gonna kind of drill down on a couple of Mr. Franklin's points. So the boards and committees set their own schedules. The planning board asked if they could hold an in-person meeting. They came to the council. The council said, yes, you can hold an in-person meeting. If they are scheduling their own meetings, then it really is, it's not required for them to come back to us and say, well, we'd like to hold the meeting on November 18th instead of October 18th. Ms. Foster?
I'm sorry. I think I understand what you're saying, Mayor, and I'm wondering, Joyce, I'm confused then, because I thought when you sent out those notices, and I referenced this in my board and committee update, that when you're sending those things out automatically, council is not approving that. You're saying that you're sending that because we're under a state of emergency declared by our mayor and tied to the governor. And that in those notices, you say, these are canceled unless approved by council.
By the council, right.
So I'm trying to understand that notice with what the mayor is saying. That's why I'm confused.
Okay. I guess the best thing to do is start with the notice that goes out every time there is an update by the governor.
Right.
Back around April or May, I believe our mayor had his own executive order that tied into the governor's executive order, so that every time the governor made a change, we would not have to issue a new one.
Right.
So each time the governor changes a date and says that we're at this point, and the next time you hear from me, it'll be such and such a date, you always get something that says there will be no meetings scheduled until such and such a date unless authorized by the council. But included in that, well, not included in that, but if the council says, okay, planning board, you can meet, then they're authorized, and that initial notice that I sent out really has no meaning for them because council has authorized that they can meet. And they did that with the planning board. The only thing I can tell you is I sent out that cancellation because apparently the planning board had changed the date. So I sent that information out. So Mike, what's—
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand the concern is that we, they set their schedules. We gave them permission to go ahead and have a in-person meeting. They took a look at what the agenda was and wanted to postpone that, I guess, because there were some reasons they wanted to postpone it to the 18th. So that was their prerogative to postpone it. So again, Fred, I'm not sure where they would come back to the council and unless you're suggesting that they needed to come back to the council to ask to meet at the new date.
Again, Mike, my point is I think we granted them permission to meet on the 18th of this month in October. I'm not so sure that we have addressed any of the other committees or planning board meetings for the month of November, December, going into next year in January. And we're meeting Zoom right now. And, you know, when are we going to get back together? I believe there was discussion in the October 1st meeting about that they could accommodate, maybe, I think Hank had some discussion there, that we can accommodate 10 to 15 people in the council chambers and 5 in the lobby, if I remember correctly. Again, I have not reviewed all the tape. I assure you that I will this Saturday while it's raining and I can't do any farming. So.
Okay, so council, let's just be sure we're fine with the planning board meeting in person as we allowed them to do on November 18th. Is there any concern with them doing that?
Mike, so that meeting on November 18th, that is a regularly scheduled planning board meeting, or is it not?
It is.
Regularly
scheduled on our schedule for the year that was approved in January.
Okay,
it's a regular scheduled meeting.
Right, and that meeting will be like all of the other planning board meetings up through this point since March have been through Zoom, through Facebook, and on Channel 6. No, I'm wrong. So that will not be the case. That's what I'm trying to confirm. That's what I'm wanting to clarify is if it is a regular scheduled planning board meeting, and we, since whatever date, have been meeting on Zoom and Facebook and those modalities, now these people are going to be sitting in a room and they'll be available by Zoom, but not by Facebook and not by Channel 6.
We haven't done the only time that the planning board has been on Channel 6 is when it was a public hearing. All of the planning board meetings have not been live on Channel 6. But that was our plan, to have it on Zoom or in person for the public to participate in those two manners.
Stacy, but it has been on Facebook?
It has. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we're worried about the comments, why don't we just moderate the comments?
I don't think you're allowed to disable comments on Facebook.
Again, my point here is whether we allowed it in October 18th or again in November the 18th, that this meeting is going to be limited to about 15 people by the statutes that we're currently operating under, or the constrictions that we're currently operating on, whether it be in October or November. And you know, if I showed up and couldn't get into the lobby, you know, where'd I go for information?
Can I make a comment?
Please.
I think a way to remedy that would be simply to have a sign up in advance of the meeting. And then it would be on a first come, first served basis. And so if staff can accommodate 18 individuals, which I think is the number I recall total in and outside the chambers, if they can accommodate 18 and they have more than 18 people sign up, and we're way out far enough in advance for the public who's really interested in this to become aware of it, then they will know that they shouldn't show up in person if they were unable to sign up to be there in person. And that would resolve that issue. I'm a little bit conflicted actually over the concern about Facebook versus Zoom. And somebody's gonna have to explain to me why there would be any concern over anyone who has internet access using Zoom versus using Facebook. I'm just a little confused about that. So I'm hearing people comment about that. So could somebody explain to me why that would be problematic, other than we just did it that way before?
I mean, Dr. Sadler, from my point of view, I'm just trying to create consistency. We started a system with COVID started, and that system was Zoom, sharing on Facebook and accessing through Channel 6. I want the town to have some form of consistency in the way that the public is able to view our meetings, whether they can attend in person or not. And this is our first experience with opening it up. So I think staff, if you guys can, I'm kind of also want some answers, I guess, all along those same lines about Facebook versus why are we offering Facebook and why we're not offering Facebook and that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think my reaction to that would be, and I agree, consistency is important, but consistency can begin and end at a point and then restart. And so the consistency going forward could be Zoom. I mean, it could be that you decide that going forward that the way in which people are going to have access to these meetings is going to be through Zoom. Particularly if there's a good rationale for doing that.
Sure.
Now, I think the council needs to agree that these off-color, inappropriate comments that are made sometimes on Facebook detract from the process. If we can't agree to that, I mean, if you think it's okay for people to make any kind of comment toward anybody that they wish to make them toward on Facebook, then fine, let's make sure that Facebook's available to people. But we don't agree that that's appropriate. And the mayor talked about this after we had the Solomon hearing last time about civility. If we don't care about civility in this process, then we ought to make Facebook available along with Zoom. I understand the consistency thing, and I agree with you, but I think that the way to provide consistency is simply to alert people that we're changing the process, and that going forward, here's the way it's going to happen, and then maintain that approach over time.
So then we need to decide as a council if we're going to do Zoom and Facebook, or if we're just going to do Zoom.
Right.
Folks, that's the question before us.
In our past, we only used Facebook for town council regular meetings, and then that was it.
I think another issue that we had talked about in our board and committee task force, the four of us, recently this week, was whenever we start, or when boards and committees start back, their only avenue is going to be Zoom, pretty much, because only town staff members have administrative rights to even post a live meeting on Facebook. We're not going to be, I would say we wouldn't want to give, a numerous amount of people administrative rights to a governmental town Facebook page. So that's another thing that we kind of talked about as far as when those boards and committees start meeting, that they not being on Facebook either.
Folks, I'm not sure we're gonna wrestle this one to the ground tonight. So, Mr. Manager, let me suggest to you that what I'm hearing is that we want to come up with a policy that is consistent, moving forward. And if you all can work that up, I'm a little reluctant to say we don't want to do Facebook because we don't like the comments. But again, that is a determination. But if we decide to do Zoom for all of the board and committee meetings, then that's what we do. But I think that's a recommendation that we would expect from you with the rationale behind it. Does that make sense? Everybody agree to that?
I would agree to that. I would add one thing, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that Dr. Sadler and Melissa both addressed what we're trying to balance here. That if we've set a precedent post-COVID, we want to make sure there's continuity. However, we can change continuity if there's a determination. I think without also recognizing the optics of a petitioner where there was so much upset in the community, and to then have a meeting where the public, where there's a change, all I would ask is, as part of the recommendation, Mr. Manager, that get considered, because otherwise I think it would be naive to not consider that. And therefore, any notice would need to be provided to the community to say, hey, here's what we're doing and here's why, and herewith, this would be the way we do it. So just giving folks notice when we do change the rules of the game, I think is very important right now.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we talked about before and why we were going to use Zoom this time was we were talking about moving to an in-person meeting as opposed to Zoom. And we have not used Facebook in in-person committee meetings in the past, except for the use of Facebook in our town council regular meetings. So as a part of that discussion, when we talked about it before, Councilman Fred Franklin, rightly so, made some concerns that if he wanted to tune in on it, or if anyone wanted to tune into it because of the limited meeting size available in the room, that we ought to at least offer Zoom so somebody could tune in for that. So that's why we said on that we were going to come back with an in-person meeting and then supplement the in-person meeting with the use of Zoom. So that's how we got back to the use of Zoom only in a situation where we were talking about an in-person meeting.
Has anybody else used Facebook in any of their other meeting activities? I've been involved in a number of meetings outside of the town using different web-based platforms, from WebEx to GoToMeeting to Teams. So has anybody else used, and I've never used Facebook for that purpose, because those platforms provide you an opportunity to interact on a sort of person-to-person basis, where people know who's saying and raising whatever issues they have. So has anybody else done it a different way?
We're not aware of anyone that does Facebook for town government meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, so the foundation is if you're meeting in person, or actually if you're meeting remotely, you've got to provide the public an access to see that meeting, because they can't view it in person. So Hank, will you and staff kind of work up something for our briefing in October? Or, I'm sorry, November. And let's go ahead. And I think the point is well taken. We're going to formalize a policy so that we can be consistent. We can be consistently inconsistent.
Yes, I understand that. Are we going to, is that separate and apart from the rescheduling of the planning board's in-person meeting?
Yeah, that's to my mind, that's completely separate.
Got it, understood.
And Mayor, if I may, I would be fine. I heard you ask the question, but I would be fine going through a more formal process of reaffirming the council's direction to the planning board to have an in-person meeting. I think that was what, I think that Councilperson Welch made that recommendation to give the planning board the opportunity to participate in this process of determining how they would best like to meet. And that was the basis on which I made my decision to have them go ahead with it, because, you know, they're most aware of that environment and what they're trying to accomplish more so than we are, it seems. So I'd be in favor, if you're okay with that, I'd be in favor of moving that reaffirmation.
If you'll make that motion, let's do it.
Just did.
Okay, so you're saying basically the little expansion on that, that council is providing direction to board that it's
It's
within
giving
the
permission.
Pardon?
It's giving permission to the planning board to meet in person if they determine that that is the best method for enabling them to accomplish their goals with regard to this project.
Excellent. That's a perfect motion. Any second on that, please?
I'll second it, and I'll make a comment that we really need to watch and not micromanage our boards and committees that we've set up. I mean, they're their own bodies and they get to decide when and what they want to meet on and how they want to meet. I do understand that we did have laws and things prior, but just at our last meeting, we said that they could, and I don't think that we need to keep revisiting this every month and just move forward with it.
I've got one specific question for Stacy.
Let me be sure. Mr. Smitherman, was that a second on the motion?
That was a second. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. We're in discussion now, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Mayor. Stacy, the delay from this month to November, is that a request of the developer or is that a request of the planning board chair?
It was a request of the developer because of scheduling issues.
Thank you very much for that information.
Is that atypical?
I wouldn't think so, no. I mean, if the request was for us to meet in person with him, I would, it's a meeting that he would need to be at to meet in person. So that's why we wanted to accommodate that.
Well, for clarification, I think they were interested in that request because normally a petitioner can come before them, but because of COVID, this petitioner was not able to. And that was the understanding behind the request. Is that not right?
That is correct.
Very good. Any additional discussion?
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I brought this up before Councilperson Smitherman. I agree. I was chair of the planning board. I didn't want to be micromanaged. However, what I understand, the reason I brought it up last time is that I heard some ambivalence or confusion. And so I just requested that, or had consideration for Stacy to loop back and say, ask them if they thought it was warranted to take the risk that we all agree that we don't want to do ourselves or have other boards and committees do. If they felt that they wanted to take that risk, that meeting was warranted to come together in person, then okay, I'll support that. But the way the motion was phrased last time, I wasn't comfortable, so I voted no. So I agree. I don't want to micromanage. So I just think that was what we were trying to clarify. So that's for the record.
Well, is this motion more clear or do you want to amend it?
The only thing that's not clear to me about this motion is, are you saying for this particular meeting request in November or for going forward? I don't care. I'm just.
My motion was for this meeting coming up in November because that's really what's in front of us.
Okay.
So I'm back to my question. Do you need to amend it then based on that?
Yeah, I think, Ken, your motion and the motion that was seconded wasn't date specific. It was the intent, or at least my understanding of it was, we're going to provide permission to the planning board to have in-person meetings when they deem it necessary, and it wasn't date specific.
I actually don't.
And I'm good with that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. I mean, it encompasses I don't know why we would not want that.
So why would we do that for other boards and committees?
Okay.
I mean, this is where I don't want to keep revisiting this every month either, David. I feel like it's an iterative loop in my head. So
Well, because this question doesn't involve other boards and committees. We can address that.
okay.
I'll get some input on that for you, and we discussed this during our meeting, is that if we get into in-person meetings under the current situation for all boards and committees, it grows exponentially the involvement of staff in the coordination of this. So I think for the interim period, it needs to be used sparingly and when it's appropriate and called for.
Okay, then it's on it would have to be on an as-needed basis, right?
Yes, sir. I do agree with
I
that.
think that's what I just heard you say. So, and that's what the mayor said, when they deem it appropriate.
Okay.
I don't think as long as that comes through to them, is that the expectation is not that every month they'll be meeting in person, but when they deem it appropriate, they can, then that should clear that up.
Ms. Walker, are you clear on the motion in the second?
The original motion was that you reaffirm permission for the planning board to meet in person if that's the best method to move forward. That was the original motion.
Okay, I think, Dr. Sadler, do you want to amend that motion?
I'm fine with a friendly amendment if somebody wants to offer it.
I'm comfortable with it. I'm going to call the question. Mr. Smitherman, voting on the motion.
What do you want?
Yeah, on Dr. Sadler's motion. Yeah,
I mean, I'll still second it if that's what you want, and I'll say, yes, I approve.
Okay. Ms. Hunt.
No.
Mr. Franklin.
I'd like to know what I'm voting on right now.
Ms. Walker, Mrs. Walker just read that. Ms. Walker, would you read that again, please?
Please rephrase that. I was looking at some video I had. Last time this group has been together partially was March the 10th of this year. And there were 4 of us in the council chambers and 3 of you were sitting on Syria in a chair. So I'd like to see what we're voting on now.
Ms. Walker, would you please restate the motion?
Motion was to reaffirm permission for the planning board to meet in person if that was the best method to move forward.
Dr. Sadler, is that your understanding of the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Smitherman, is that your understanding of the second?
Yes, sir.
Very good. The question has been called. Mr. Smitherman.
Aye.
Ms. Hunt.
No.
Mr. Franklin.
No.
Ms. Foster.
No.
Ms. Welch.
No.
Dr. Sadler.
Yes.
Mayor is yes, but the motion fails 4-3, I believe. Those who were in the opposition or the prevailing side, would you like to make a substitute motion?
It's 3-4.
3-4.
3 yes and 4 no's.
Yeah.
Normally you do your yeses first.
Okay, I'll make a note. Thank you. Would any of the individuals like to make a motion clarifying their position?
I will try.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that the planning board be allowed to meet as they deem necessary in person with a Zoom meeting available.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
I like second that emotion. That's Supremes. I'm on it. Okay, is there any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
My issue has to do with consistency across all boards and committees. Why is this being offered to planning board and no one else? So I would, first of all, I'm still uncomfortable. I mean, we said we didn't want to have in-person meetings, and now we've got mission creep here. So I could get on board potentially if we are saying that we are in support of letting the boards and committees make a determination, working with, I suppose, the manager. So that's my hang up.
Okay.
Could I have a question? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jane.
Oh, so thank you. Yeah, I have two problems with it. Number one, as Jean Marie said, I think we should just address all our committee and boards. And number two, I'm concerned that we leave Facebook off just because of appearances and openness. And also, I think there'll be an extreme amount of people that won't get the message and will try to come to town hall and be frustrated that they won't be allowed to come in, since this is relation to the Solomon project.
Could I ask a question about that though, Jane? If they know that there's going to be a meeting at town hall, if they know there's a meeting at town hall regarding this project,
yes,
and they're likely to show up, well, how will they know that there's a meeting at town hall unless they know the rest of the message?
Well, that's a point. I just worry about all the emotion that was involved with it, that we could just have a situation there, but.
And I thought that the manager had agreed to look into the possibility of using other methods of accessing the meeting. Was that not right, what you suggested, Mayor?
Yeah, that was the recommendation that staff is going to bring back to us in October.
Can we just be
Well, what we talked about for that one was staff is going to bring you back some recommended policies so that we are consistent moving forward. And then that was a separate issue from this meeting.
Right. And again, and I understand Council, the Mayor Pro Tem's concern about consistency across all committees. I guess, and I may not understand the nature of the other boards or committees as well as I do the planning board. My impression though is they don't have issues of this type that come before them. And so it is unlikely that they would have a need for an in-person meeting, as it is unlikely that the planning board will on a regular basis have a need for in-person meetings. So for anybody, nobody should assume or come to the conclusion that I'm not in favor of other committees having the same opportunity as the planning board, for two reasons. One is the planning board's issue is in front of us. There's no issue from any other committee in front of us. So we're dealing with what's in front of us right now. And what I just said before is I just am unaware of what types of issues come before other boards and committees that would require them to have an in-person meeting in the same way that the planning board has that necessity.
I can only speak to my planning board experience, and the High Howdy meeting, I could have held that in a Zoom. So maybe that's also my sort of fundamental hang up is that. So I can't speak to that, but I hear your point, Council Member Sadler, that you certainly aren't making this motion or supporting this motion to say that you want inconsistency with allowances. I hear that. And I wouldn't suspect you would feel any differently.
Yeah, and I don't understand. First off, we wouldn't be dealing with this at all if it hadn't come up in the planning board's meeting, right? I mean, this just didn't appear on the council's agenda because we thought it up and decided we wanted to push this onto the planning board. This came out of the planning board discussion. There might have been some ambiguity about what people wanted to do or something like that. I don't know. I watched and listened to that meeting. I wasn't as confused, and I read the minutes and I wasn't as confused about it, but that's just, I may have been reading into something.
I don't want to second guess. I'm just telling you what I observed was the chair indicated that, from what I even recall, that he had a conversation with the mayor or the mayor and Stacy. I don't remember, but I remember that's how the meeting started was, hey, had some discussion about some follow-up. The petitioner is interested in sitting down. I know council is probably going to be talking about allowing for in-person meeting. If they do, hey, why not have that? So are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. That's what I heard.
I'll make one last comment. I'm sorry, Ms. Hunt, were you going to say
Yeah,
something?
I was just trying to figure out where I was at on the motion, if it ever got a second, and then,
I made a second.
okay, yeah. And then there is if it doesn't move any further, I'd like to go back and just maybe specify for this particular November meeting, and so that we can have further discussion at some point as a council and really kind of drill down. By the time we do that, we'll get Hank's staff's recommendations, and then we can, include the other boards and committees and make more informed decision. Right now, I feel like we are piecemealing off of one November 18th meeting. So I think if we can just make it specific, the motion specific to the November 18th meeting, we can move forward.
And also, Melissa,
I'm happy to accept that. I didn't mean to butt in, but I was a seconder, so I'm just going to say I'll accept that.
And the only other comment that would make sense based on what Councilwoman Hunt just said is, could we address this when the manager brings his recommendation in November? I mean, they're asking for the 18th. That's
absolutely.
I would call the question on this particular item.
Okay.
Question's been called. Ms. Walker, will you restate the motion, I believe, as we understand it, or you understand it?
Okay. And I did, I noted the change to add November meeting in there.
I believe, Ms. Hunt, that was your modification of your motion. Okay,
Yeah,
and Dr. Sadler accepted that? Yes.
Accepted it. Okay, that the planning board be allowed to meet in November as necessary in person with Zoom available.
Okay. That's the motion and the second on the table. Question has been called. Mr. Smitherman.
I approve.
Ms. Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Franklin. Ms. Foster.
I'm in trouble. Nay.
Ms. Welch.
Nay.
Dr. Sadler.
Aye.
Mayor's aye. That motion carries by 5-2 with Ms. Welch and Ms. Foster in opposition. Very good. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Stacy, would you please pop up our how to reach out to participate in our final public forum? Oh, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the second and final time this evening that you will have an opportunity to speak to the council, share with us anything that is on your mind. This is our opportunity to listen to you. The information to reach out to us is on the screen. Mr. Manager, do we have anybody waiting?
We have Mr. Rabin, who spoke the first time, again has his hand up.
Okay. Mr. Rabin, please give us your name, address, and hold your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, this is Jeff Rabin. I'm at 212 Vernon Place, Louisville, North Carolina. I've got 2 comments and a question that I would hope the town council will entertain. First, the comments. There was a discussion between, I believe, Fred and Mr. Moser about concrete earlier, and I just wanted to add to that. I want to make sure the town council and the staff understand that you don't necessarily have to break concrete open to see what's in it or under it. That comment was made by Fred. There's something called ground penetrating radar, and that technology has come a long way, and it works very well now. You can get pictures of what's in concrete, including the conduit, wiring, rebar.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it works really well today. It's rather expensive, and it's not always cost efficient to do it versus just breaking out a jackhammer. But when there's a lot at stake and high risk, you definitely want to go down that path or at least consider it. So I just want to put that out there. And then regarding the comments on how to make meetings available, I'm very happy that that the town council has chosen to use Zoom. The professional corporate world has definitely consolidated on Zoom in a big way. I'm on Zoom all the time, every day. It works really well, and it does allow you to moderate meetings in a way that keeps civility, and you can still, obey Robert's rules when you need to and all that good stuff. So I even hope that in a post-COVID era that the town council continues to offer Zoom. I think it's a great platform. It allows me to multitask, and I don't have to come to town hall for 3 or 4 hours to make a 3-minute comment. And that's extremely valuable to me. So I would hope that that continues. And then I have a question, and Mr. Moser reminded me of this. I've had this question for a while, and it's about budget. Mr. Moser made a comment about how Duke Energy has funds that we can use on certain things, but not others, and there's rules. And I remember the one time I really read through the town budget in depth, I was really surprised. The number one contributing line item was, of course, property taxes. Nobody's surprised by that. But the number 2 largest line item in contributing to our town budget is Duke Energy. And that very much surprised me. And I'd just like for someone to comment on the history of that, how and why that came to be, what those funds are earmarked for, and how much influence does that give a Duke Energy utility over our town? And I'll leave that. That's all.
Ms. Orell, I believe the second largest source of revenue is our sales tax.
It is, but I think what the gentleman is referring to, he says Duke Energy. I think he means POW bill.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's allocated to us by population and miles of road. And it cannot be used, it can be used on town maintained streets.
That are at least 16 feet wide.
That are at least 16 feet wide. Very
In
good.
a heavily prescribed manner.
There we go.
That's also state funding, isn't it?
It is correct. It's funding from the state.
Gasoline tax?
Gasoline
No,
tax.
no, it's not. It's actually an appropriation from the General Assembly. It's not tied to the gasoline tax any longer. It hasn't been for years.
Yeah, years ago, Ken, it was, but they've changed it for now.
All right, thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Raven. Ladies and gentlemen, we have approached the 9:15 mark. Thank you for your attention. Thank all of our pets for their patience, waiting for us to get off the Zoom meeting. One of them anyway.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask for a clarification too? Mr. Raven had said something about playground equipment that was new or something. Ryan, I did not remember that we had any new playground equipment. Was that Joni Moser maybe?
Yeah, that's correct, Joyce. David and myself, we went to Joni Moser just the other day, and I said, David, I think that playground equipment is brand new. And sure enough, they have new equipment. We don't.
Yep.
We don't have any new equipment. We did put new, I guess, tops on the equipment at Jack Warren Park to provide a little bit more shade 2 years ago, but we don't have any new equipment.
Yeah.
And for Mr. Raven and those who would watch the Joni Moser is a county park and not a town park.
Very good. Council members, any additional comments this evening? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Whoa.
Well, Mr. Franklin, turn on your video so I can see you, please.
Well, it's on.
It is now.
Well, it's been on. Anyhow, I see myself. I've got a question about bulky item pickup. I'm getting more questions from citizens about that than anything else. I mean, and I agree with what they're telling me. If we carry stuff to the end of our driveways and set it out by the road, and crews come through with their trucks and pick it up, why can't that happen when it comes to what we've been facing in the last 6 to 8 months? I guess that's what I'm getting at. That's one question. And the other thing I'm disappointed in us as a council about is that we are not stepping up and holding in-person council meetings on our regularly scheduled council meetings in chambers when we're allowing our boards to come back into our facilities before we do. And so those are my comments tonight. And if anybody wants to respond to that, I appreciate listening to what you got to say.
Hank, will you respond to the bulky item, please? I believe that's a waste management policy.
Yeah, and the last time we talked to them, and Ryan may have more recent conversations, that's something that they've discontinued as a company policy during this time.
Yeah, the last time I spoke to them, it's probably been maybe a month ago. They said that they would let me know once they felt comfortable with their employees picking up bulky items. I can reach back out to them again and touch base with them, but
Do we pay for that on a per event basis, or is that just part of the regular contract as well as the electronics recycling?
That's a per event basis. We don't pay anything unless they do it.
Okay, what about the electronics recycling? I think we talked about that a little bit a while ago, and I don't recall where we landed on that.
I think we were planning on being able to have one. I can't remember the frequency, but I guess right now we could have one whenever we're able to assemble one. I think we're still going to be bumping our heads against the virus issue.
But is that part of the contract, or is that also event related?
That is something that we're entitled to as a specific number per contract.
Okay, so are they going to, do we have a plan for adjusting that contract so that, you know, we get the benefit of it at some point in the future, or some rebate or something or other?
Oh gosh, Pam, is that something, I know that they're going to give us that, but we don't normally have a cost unless no, we don't have a cost for the electronic recycling. That's just something they give us, and they have a certain amount that they are to provide. So Councilman Sadler, you make a good point. That's something we might want to take up with them if we're being delayed from having an appropriate amount.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Council members, any other comments this evening?
Yes,
Who was the yes?
Foster.
Ms. Foster?
Yes. So I'm going to try something new since it is 9:18 and we're exhausted and dogs are ready to be released. Release the dogs. I'm going to reference the things that are on my mind and then send a follow-up email. How would that be? Is that acceptable? Therefore, it's transparent what my thought is, and I'll send it out for consideration individually. Will that work?
Yeah, I guess, Ms. Foster, we just want to caution that we don't want to have discussion on individual council members' items as an email conversation.
Right. So I'm just saying, I would say, hey guys, here's my idea. I'll send you a follow-up email. Is that acceptable? And then no follow-up discussion, you know, like we usually do.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So one is the pitch that I made back at budget season to say, hey, couldn't we do a little pre-retreat planning in the fall? It's the fall. So I think it might make some sense to surface some big ideas that the staff could be researching in preparation for January's retreat. Chatted with Hank about that. He said, yeah, I think we could do that. So that's idea number one. Number two, with all due respect to Hank's presentation last week about the lighting, 45 minutes in, I was thinking, isn't there like a small community center committee of the council that could maybe dig in over the next year and play with those kind of details? Just a thought. I'm happy to be involved, but I certainly trust my colleagues to work with the mayor and the manager on making some of those decisions. So that's number two. After action report. This was another thing we talked about post Solomon, having the planning board look at the comprehensive sort of what happened, what did we learn? I certainly would be interested in knowing down the road when they can get to that, because the sooner the better, because of the purposes of just remembering. It's easy to remember fresh. And finally, Joseph Sloop, thank you. We shouldn't have to depend on a volunteer putting forth something wonderful like that. You know, Stacy, I've said this to her before, and I look forward to the planning board and the chair and those wonderful members telling us what they need in terms of other resources to help move forward all of the stuff that I know that Stacy's got teeming on her list. That's it.
Very good. Well, I suggest, Ms. Foster, I think your first three items really do require council discussion. So maybe we can put those on the briefing for October and flush them out completely. Because I think just an email going out saying, here's what I'm thinking, doesn't really advance what you want to try to do, which is just to have some concrete movement on those.
November briefing, sir, right?
Yeah, at
No.
our November briefing.
Well, okay, I'll make, I don't want to commit to that because I don't know if I want to wait for November briefing for some of those things. So I might have to talk to you offline, Mayor. How's
Yeah,
that?
that's
Okay.
fine. Perfect.
Question, and I'm probably misremembering, but weren't we going to talk about the lighting plan for the community center sometime?
You had said you wanted to take that up in the briefing in November, and I
Okay.
have provided you an email with some further details.
Yeah, I saw that today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Hank, that what you sent out today, I haven't had a chance to look at my email. That's the individual unit pricing.
No, that is the cost of the options 2 and 3 without using the decorative poles on the Santa Bills on option 2 or the decorative poles on all of the headlights unless they were up in the building or inside the circle.
Gotcha. Are we still trying to get the unit pricing?
Yes, I have that request.
That'll be fabulous. Very good. Council members, any other comments this evening?
Thank you, everybody.
Very good. With that, we will entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Ms. Hunt, that was
Melissa?
not very enthusiastic. I want to say that.
Started off with Happy Thursday and by 9:22. This is my bedtime.
It is October and the witching hour, so.
So Ms. Hunt makes the motion. I believe Ms. Foster made the second.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to clarify that is a motion to adjourn.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
She
is.
just made a motion.
Yeah, we caught your drift. Very good. Council members, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us. Those of you that have, we always appreciate your listening to the discussions of the town council. And as you can tell, it was thoughtful discussion. There's no member of the town council that is shy about expressing their opinion or ask questions or get engaged. And that's what we want on behalf of council members representing you. With that, we have a motion on the table in a second. Mr. Smitherman?
Night, everybody.
Ms. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
Good night.
Ms. Foster?
Aye, and thank you to the staff.
Ms. Welch?
Good night.
Dr.
Bye.
Sadler?
Bye.
Very good. The mayor's aye. We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Good night now.